Hello, today we are going to see the difference between proxy and reverse proxy in a jiffy. So let's start with the formal definition of a proxy, also called as a forward proxy. So proxy server is a server that acts as an intermediary for requests from the clients. So it is intermediary, meaning that it is routing the request to the actual server. In this case, example.com being the actual server, and the request is being routed from this side via the proxy, which is intermediary, to the final server, which is the example.com server. So this is the intermediary which is working on behalf of the client. So this is very important, on behalf of the client. The forward proxy works on behalf of the client when requesting a service. So let's see an example as well. So let's say that a person who is sitting in his school, a boy who is sitting in his school premises is accessing facebook.com. Now he's able to do this facebook.com, but the restrictive management puts a firewall in between, and the firewall rules now are not allowing him to access the facebook.com. So what is the way forward? So one of the approaches which he can leverage is the proxy server. So how? So he places a proxy server in between. Instead of directly from his web browser, from his machine, instead of accessing a facebook.com, what he does is he browses the proxy.com, any proxy site. There are so many proxy sites which are available, and some of those proxy sites are not disabled by the firewall rules. So he's able to access the proxy, and from the proxy in turn he's able to access the facebook.com. So this is one of the use case of using a proxy in between. There could be some other use cases also, like probably logging the details or masking the identity of the user. So those kind of use cases. But let's see the bullets to understand more details on this. So forward proxy acting on behalf of the requester. So this forward proxy is acting on the behalf of the user, on the behalf of the user. So this is a major difference between forward and the reverse proxy. So it is very important to see that it acts on behalf of the requester. So primary use cases, the first one we have already seen, user needs to access a blocked site. There could be another use case wherein the user wants to mask its identity, meaning the user's IP address or user's identity, it doesn't want to make the facebook.com aware of the actual identity from where from where the request is being routed. So what the user does is that it goes via the proxy, and thereby able to access the facebook.com without revealing his own identity. So there are some cases wherein some services, some applications on Play Store are not available in some geographies. So thereby, on those cases, the users can make use of a proxy, thereby hiding their actual geolocation and being able to use the service with the help of the proxy being hosted somewhere else. It may not be hosted in the country which is not allowing the service. So that's another use case. So reading the definition again, proxy server is a server that acts as an intermediary for requests from clients seeking resources from the servers that provide those resources. A proxy server thus functions on behalf of the client when requesting service, potentially masking the true origin of the request to the resource server. Now let's move to this reverse proxy. So a reverse proxy, also called as a surrogate, is a proxy server that appears to clients to be an ordinary server. Which the meaning of this is that the client will not know that this is actually a placeholder for the original server. They think that this is the actual server from which the request they are getting the response for the request which they are making. So, but reverse proxy, what it does is it forwards the request to one or more ordinary servers that handle the request. The response from the proxy server is returned as if it came directly from the original server. So this is a very important point. This basically means that the user is not able to distinguish between the real server which is sending the request or the proxy. So it assumes or it understands that the reverse proxy is the one which is responding to the request which is made by the user. So leaving the client with no knowledge of the original server. So let's see an example again. So we are able to see that there is this internal infrastructure of some website, let's say facebook.com or mysecuresite.com. So what we are intending to do here is not highlighting our internal network infrastructure, like what kind of hosting we are using, which DB we are using, which web server we are using, the physical box basically. Instead, we have a proxy server which responding to the requests being made by the users, and the user is not able to distinguish where exactly this request is finally going and being served from. So the user thinks that the reverse proxy is the one which is serving the request. So let's see. So like we discussed, this is the important distinction between forward and reverse proxy. In reverse proxy, the proxy works on behalf of the service or the content provider, wherein in the case of forward proxy, it was working on behalf of the user. Primary use case, security. The server wants all user to access the server via the proxy and no direct access. Okay, so direct access to a server may mean that the user can do a lot of other things also. Probably we have some rules, some things to log, some kind of security is in place in the proxy server, and thereby the infrastructure is very secure. Uh, so let's see the definition one more time. A reverse proxy or surrogate. So now I think we can also correlate why we are calling it a surrogate. So instead of the real server, it is a surrogate of the real server. Is a proxy server that appears to client to be an ordinary server. Reverse proxies forward requests to one or more ordinary servers that handle the request. The response from the proxy is returned as if it came directly from the original server, leaving the client with no knowledge of the original server. So I hope it clarifies all the doubts about the forward and the reverse proxy. Thank you for joining me here. Thanks.